What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the local meta report here in St. Louis, Missouri. I, of course, am Brad, aka the mayor of Lorcana and co-host of the Rules of Villainy podcast. This is a video series where each and every week I bring to you the latest and greatest in Disney Lorcana winning decks here from our weeklies. We also had a tournament this weekend, an Infinity tournament at the Collector Store, which will be featuring 2 Infinity decks at the end of the video. So without further ado, let's jump into the 6 decks that I have for you today. All right, our first deck of the week comes to you by way of the Collector Store's Tuesday Night League, as always. Amethyst Amber getting it done, not by Justin, but it was his deck, it appears, based on the deck list here, getting piloted by our good friend Lady Brit, both of Team Snuggly Duckling. Amber Amethyst has gotten pretty strong. Justin's been playing around with it for a while and got some new additions in here that Brittany found success with, starting with the Louisa Madrigal at the 1-drop. She is a 0-3 with Challenger 2 and Quest for 1. That's, a pretty typical 1-drop. A lot of people are favoring her over the Rafiki that's been in here since set 3. What makes her even stronger, though, is, of course, his 4-drop Dale. Ready for his shot. He's a 0-4 Quest for 2, but he allows everybody else on the board to instead challenge with their willpower, making Louisa, when challenging, a 5-5, which is just absolutely gross. But on top of that, Wilds Unknown, we have Will of the Wisp, who is a new promo card, easy to get if you go to your local leagues. They are a 0-3 Quest for 1, and when this character is banished in a challenge, you may return this card to your hand. So what a lot of people do, rightfully, is get him out there on 1, and then when it's challenged, it's eventually going to become ink, because you're not going to want to play that again unless you're trying to flood the board for some reason, but more valuable probably in your inkwell when you are running low on cards, which this deck probably won't do because it is running the Dumbo package. It's got 3 of the Genie in here, and you can maybe get some draw from the Hades. Demona, when you are low on cards, you can exert your entire opponent's board and draw up to 3 cards. Ohana means family, allows big-bodied characters like Mrs. Incredible and the Nakoma to hold damage and then draw cards for every damage healed from Ohana means family. But looking at the play lines here, we get Ham on 2, who is a piggy bank. Of course, we know from Toy Story 2-3 could be a 3-3 with Dale on board. And if you want to cheat out the Dale on turn 3, you can just turn this Ham sideways and pay 1 less for the next character you play this turn instead of questing him on turn 3. So that enables Dale to come out earlier, as does Willow. And then, of course, the mean Cheshire Cat that's always moving damage and being such a nuisance if you can't hard remove it, because a lot of times that cat isn't turning sideways unless they feel very safe. So yeah, the last 2 cards here that I want to touch on from Wilds Unknown, and again, we're going to be looking at this deck here again real shortly. Something very similar, but Mrs. Incredible is a 5-cost inkable that is a 5/6 with flexible thinking. At the start of your turn, you may choose 1. This character gains evasive until the start of your next turn, or this character gets +1 lore. So a really flexible card, if you will, to slot in there at the 5 slot that is also being occupied by Hades and, of course, the Exert Elsa 5th Spirit. One final card from Wilds Unknown is the Growing Pressure. This Growing Pressure is a 3-cost inkable action song. Chosen opposing character can't challenge and must quest during their next turn if able. And, of course, it gets to replace itself while drawing a card. So, really strong deck. I don't have Brittany's matchups, but I know that she probably picked this up and played it very well, of course, because she went 3-0. And I know Amber's not a color that I'm familiar with her playing. Most of the time it's Emerald and some form of Amethyst. Amethyst Steel, Emerald, something like Emerald, Amethyst, the Bird Queen here in St. Louis. But seeing her on this deck is exciting. This deck is really good, and congratulations to her. All right, our second deck of the week comes to you by way of Fortuna Games for the very first time. One of the pillars of the Rules of Villainy podcast. We love Fortuna. We recorded our 1-year anniversary there live in store because it means so much to us that this is where Vince runs the league and where we all met Vince. One of the 3 stores that kind of represent us here in St. Louis, and so happy to have them included in the rotation as they are now running core constructed weeklies. Heather got it done this week with The same deck that we just saw, a little bit different in Amber Amethyst. She calls it Bonkus in the Conkus, of course, for the funny flavor text that we talked about on Dale, the ready for his shot 0-4 quest for 2. We went over everything he does in Brittany's deck. A few changes that we have here is she still favors the Palace Guard in the one spot. It is a 1-4, but with Dale on board is now a 4-4. So do like that body. It also enables Ohana Means Family to hit if you need that in a pinch to draw some cards. We got the Genie package. No Dumbo, notably, but we do have 4 Mowgli. It looks like Heather went on the path of trying to snipe away your actions. She can take away your Ohana. She can take away your Horseman Strikes, your Raging Storm, even your Junior Woodchuck guidebook and library. So I don't think we saw Mowgli in Brittany's deck just a little bit ago. So she's looking to try to eliminate your hand just a little bit there and benefit herself in doing so. We do see the Mrs. Incredible in here as well as the Dale. And yeah, that is it for the Wilds Unknown cards. Everything else here looks about the same. And it's a really scary deck, and both Brittany and Heather, I'm sure, piloted them very, very well, and it's just going to get better as the set goes on and the meta evolves. So congratulations for the very first time on the Meta Report, Heather, getting it done with Amber Amethyst. All right, moving all the way out to Manticore Game Shop for our third deck of the week. We have Captain Inkswell himself, Steven, getting it done with Ruby Amethyst and asking the question, are we back? It definitely felt like he was back in the pre-tournament play testing we were doing with my toys, where this deck absolutely slaughtered me. Some of these cards I didn't even know he was in there because the games ended so quickly. But let's talk through the new Wilds Unknown cards really quickly here. We have the 1-drop Bob Parr, standard 2/2 there on 1 quest for 1. Looking to shift on turn 3 into Mr. Incredible Super Strong, who is a 6/4 shift 3. Character gets +2 strength for each other character you have in play, and whenever one of your super characters challenges another character, draw a card, and that applies to both super characters in here. I guess there's more than 2. We have the Mr. Incredible shift, of course, Mrs. Incredible still being flexible and finding her way into Ruby Amethyst, and then Violet Parr, who is a 3-cost inkable 4/2 with evasive that whenever you play this character, you may move 1 damage from chosen character to another or to a chosen opposing character. So those are your 3 supers in the deck, all Wilds Unknown cards. Of course, we got damage moving from the Cheshire Cat, who surprisingly is only a 3 of in here. Most of the time that cat runs in a pack of 4, but he found his way down to 3 to make room for some of these new cards. Mother Gothel in here to move damage, Isis Vanderchill to exert, and then this not a new Hercules, but this Hercules is finally finding play with a 4 of here, where you're, let's see, when he is sideways, he's a 5/3 quest for 2. This character can't be dealt damage, which is important. We had in the final match, I completely forgot that this character, you can move damage on it. For a while, the damage doing wasn't defined by dealt, put, and move. But now, because he specifically says being dealt damage when he is sideways, he cannot. You have to challenge into him. While this character is exerted, your other hero characters can't be dealt damage unless they're being challenged as well. And that'll come into play here in the next deck, which we'll talk about momentarily. But yeah, this Hercules is a real pain. And spoiler alert, I will talk about that Hercules in depth in just a little bit. One card that I didn't know was in this deck when playing Steven was the Shift Anna. She is a 7-cost uninkable 4/5 shift 4, though she doesn't have a shift target in the deck, and that's okay. But when she comes out on 7, when you play this character, exert all opposing characters, and that is where a bunch of shenanigans can happen based on the board state. So I like that addition. I'd like to hear Steven's thoughts on whether or not he gets a lot of use out of that Anna. I think I would prefer shifting her in and surprising the opponent, but you already have Demona to do that on 6, and then you have all kinds of spot removal like the Headless Horseman and exerting with the Isis Vanderchill to kind of keep your their board clean in the meantime. So I'm curious about the Anna. I love to see it because we don't see that Anna very often. And the only other thing I can mention is the draw package from the Queen of Hearts. No shifting there as well, but she comes out on 5. And then whenever one of your characters challenges another character, you may draw a card. So getting cards back that way as well. Very solid deck. Steven found his way to the 3-0 spot, but he's not the only one. Let's move on to the next deck. And that deck belongs to yours truly, all the way out at Manticore. I made an appearance and got to have a great night with that crew. My usual Thursday nights a lot of people weren't going to show up for it. Andy and Kirsten had prior engagements, so I decided, you know what? I'm already out there for work. I'm going to stick around, check out their league as I get to do once in a great while, and had a blast running. Tiago from Podcana had a dwarves deck that I was interested in. You know me, I love my theme decks, and this deck feels so good. I did title it technically not a net deck because I did include one card that he didn't, and that was only because I didn't have 4 Snow Whites. I ended up getting my 4 Snow White there in the very last trove that they had in stock, but I did run one of the 5-cost action, Don't Be Nervous, where you get to search your deck for a princess character, reveal that card to all players, and put it in your hand. Then shuffle your deck. If you have 2 or more 7 dwarves characters in play, draw 2 cards and gain 2 lore. And that card, I kid you not, that won me one of my games in round 1, and that game was a barn burner. We'll talk about it here in just a little bit. Let's talk about what the deck does. As you can see, it is filled with 7 dwarves here from the Wilds Unknown. At the 1 drop, we have Sleepy, who comes in as a 1/2, and if he is banished and you have another 7 dwarves or a princess character in play, you may draw a card. We're also looking at Happy from set 5 at the 1 spot, and Mulan for a little bit of hand filtering. At the 2 drop is Happy, 3/3 Quest for 1. He is just a vanilla card, but a good 2 drop to make that combination of whether or not you have a princess on 1 with Mulan or a dwarf, or a princess or a dwarf on turn 2 with Pocahontas and Happy. The reason why you're looking for that combination is because we have the right behind you ability that is a 4 or 3-cost inkable action where you draw a card. If you have a 7 dwarves character and a princess character in play, you may play a 7 dwarves character for free. So all of these dwarfs are susceptible to being played for free. Ideally, you don't want to play a 1 drop or a 2 drop. You might be looking at the 5-cost bashful, 5-cost inkable 3/6 with evasive. Getting that out on 3 feels pretty good. But you know what feels fantastic? It happens more often than you think, but you can't count on it, is dropping the 7-cost Grumpy. He's a 7-cost inkable 7/7 that quests for 2. Playing that on turn 3 is frightening. That's more scary than the Mare Wind Dancer that you see in a lot of Amethyst Steel decks, which, by the way, I have to say, as after all these months of talking about Amethyst Steel being the bane of my existence outside of Brooms, I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad for playing it because this deck was so much fun, and it fits that requirement of being just a fun theme. You know, it has an idea, and it's not just a mean challenger deck that draws cards for days and hard to get around. I absolutely love this. What else is in here from the Snow White, of course. We got to talk about Snow White. She's a 3-cost inkable card that is merry as the morning. 2/3 quest for 1, and she has Clarion Call. Whenever this character quests, you may return a 7 dwarfs character to your hand and draw a card, and that comes into play very, very well. I'll show you in just a second. Her second ability is during an opponent's turn when this character is banished in a challenge, return this card to your hand. So she's always bouncing back unless they hard remove it somehow with like a Strength of a Raging Fire, which we have in here, or some other he hurled his Thunderbolt. But when this card quest, I kid you not, it feels so good to play a dock, draw 2 cards, quest her, get your dock back, and then you can just continually cycle through your cards. And there's all kinds of fun combinations to do that. And every time you do bounce a dwarf, you draw a card anyway. So if they don't deal with the dock that's on the board, dry on the board, he can quest, you can pull it back, you can get yourself some cards. Very, very good deck. Very fun to play. My toughest matchup of the night went to round 1. I was playing Jason, who was on the toys that I was playtesting, a much better version of the toys. He had it teched with the Dale. He had it teched with Jingle Joe for some of the evasives. My Dumbos weren't long for the world with the Horseman Strikes being in there as well. That is the only round that went to 3 for me, and I was sweating. I really wanted to get through that round and play some of my friends. I only get to see Jason at Manticore, and they're always really, really good games, but he gave me a run for my money. I found it in 3. I played Link on round 2 in Blurple and got that one. He got really unlucky. He couldn't find his Hades, his hard removals, and I was just refusing to give him cards with the Mona. But and then my third round was against a Ruby Steel Gargoyles deck from our friend Chip, and that Hercules that I talked about with Steven, who I happened to avoid, thankfully, was in the tournament. That is, that Hercules was a big problem, and I for a lot of times was not dealing with him because I didn't want to challenge my Dumbo into him at the time when I needed some card draw. And then as I was leaving, I watched Steven play his final match and was reminded I could still move damage to the Hercules. So my cats that was just sitting out there ignoring the Hercules could have been picking away at him when I was getting some damage on things. So additionally, he dropped a new legendary Merida and didn't quest his Hercules. So I was able to strength the Merida with 5 people on board to take her out immediately. And he instantly regretted not turning his Hercules sideways because that would have enabled her to not be dealt damage from the strength of a Raging Fire while he was exerted. So, few mistakes to work his way through, but brand new meta, it just things were all figuring out together, and I had such a blast. The point is, I had such a blast playing this deck, and happy to be on here, and wanted to shout it out to the world. Shout out to Tiago as well, because I do not have the ability to build this deck on my own, but finding the play lines while testing it out myself has been an absolute treat. And go check out. I'm sure he's got more and more great stuff on Podcana. I am weeks behind on that, which I regrettably say, but I do need to sit down and listen to them talk about it. So anyway, I've gone way too long on my own deck. I feel very vain here. So let's move on to the Infinity decks for the week.
All right, we are venturing back to the collector store on Saturday for an Infinity event, win a box tournament hosted by them. Shout out for getting Infinity play happening as we approach DLC Indianapolis. And I still have no idea what I'm playing, but this is a contender from ROV Kirsten. I should say the top 4 all split the box. I think they got... maybe it was 2 boxes, because I thought they all got 12 packs each. But she calls this deck, this Ruby Amethyst deck, oops, no Be Prep, because she accidentally put in 4 of the wrong cards. She meant to have Be Prepared in for the 6-cost inkable Maui Half Shark. But instead, the Shark came out, and he's like, you know what? I'll just get the job done without it. You don't need no scary lion song. I'll just come out and say you're welcome every time I hand you a defeat. But to going back, since this is Infinity, everything is legal with the exception of Hiram, who, of course, wouldn't be in this deck because he is Sapphire. And it looks like the Ruby Amethyst that we all know and love from previous sets. The newest additions to it is the boost Hercules at the 1-drop. He's a 0/3, but becomes a 3/3 when you boost for 2. As we talked about last week, getting a card under him, or even 2 and bouncing it with a fox or a snake would allow you some pseudo card draw. We also have the Jebediah from this set, who is a 2-cost 3/3 with evasive and reckless, basically out there hunting Dumbos. Dumbo is a new addition to Ruby Amethyst in the Infinity mode because he just came out in Fabled. And then everything else, Hades, Andy's favorite card of the deck, or of at least Whispers. I don't know if it's his favorite card of the set or not, but I know he loves that card. Probably some influence there. We got the GOAT, we got Brawl, Lady Tremaine, Ladies in Chairs is back, and then running those locations of the library in Queen's Castle to get some card draw there. Friends on the Other Side, of course, is an instant 4 of singable song to draw 2 cards. But yeah, I mean, the goal of this deck, get those locations out there, make them deal with it. And if you can, which Kirsten couldn't all day, Be Prep the board so those locations are safe from anything besides things with Rush. So she found a way to get into that top 4. I believe she was top 2 before they split, but they ended up splitting it all. And this is one of the 4 decks. I only have 2 of them for you today. Let's move on to Andy's deck, who I believe was in first place at the time of the split. And it was Andy that took it down, or at least ended the cut in first place at the collector store with Ruby Sapphire Infinity version 12.1, because he's been tinkering with it so much. But man, this deck looks fun. We got a lot of new cards in here. From what it used to be, of course, Shark Manor is its own thing. He's only running 2 Manors because he's got so many other tools in the toolbox here, starting with Cinderella, one of the newer cards here to get some ramp if he doesn't find Tala to Sing How Far I'll Go. Both of those in here. Maui Time with both the Hero to All and the Half Shark to recur actions. If we're looking at actions, Maui Shark can bring back 4, 8, 12, 16, 17, 21, 23 actions in the deck, and he can come out rushing with a Vitalisphere on board and that one extra ink to give him rush. So those actions are going to be in the discard and in the hand over and over again as long as Maui Half Shark can challenge. We got Tamatoa, happy as a clam, out there to recur items and play items for free. And then perhaps still my favorite card in the game, at least my favorite art, the Nicholas Cole 7-cost inkable Scar. Vicious Cheater, 6/5 quest for 2 with rush, and during your turn, whenever this character banishes another character in a challenge, you may ready this character. He can't quest for the rest of the turn, but you know what he can do? He can challenge again, and it is a safety measure from being if you're blocked from be preparing, which is weird to say in that tense. If you're blocked from playing be prepared, Scar can come out and just rush all the exerted characters, especially when he is nomming down some popsicles in between to heal him up and allow him to stay alive through all of it. So very, very cool addition there, and I love seeing that. I'm curious. We'll probably talk about it on the podcast how effective that Scar actually was. Being a one of, he might have not have seen it a whole lot, but I can imagine he comes out there and just wrecks the board. The Olaf, the 9-cost inkable Olaf, is a 4/4 quest for 2, and he is 1 ink cheaper for every action in the discard. So at times you're ramping up so high, and you got so many actions in the discard because of it. This Olaf is essentially going to be free the entire game until he is banished. The one other card that I do want to talk about is the Leviathan that Andy is testing with. It is a 10-cost uninkable 10/10. And then whenever you play this character, if 2 or more cards were put into your discard this turn, you may banish any number of chosen opposing characters with a total of 10 strength or less, which is just another crazy board wipe scenario that Andy, I really want to hear. I'm shamelessly plugging the podcast now, but I'm sure we will talk about this on the pod later on this week, this Friday. Check it out if you want to hear Andy's thoughts on his deck. But looks like a mean one and something that we need to prepare for as we approach Indianapolis, because with all these cards in the game, who knows what crazy combos we can come up with. This one already has me shook. So congratulations to Andy and Kirsten. It's great seeing some teammates and the heart of the show being at the top of it. I think an 18 or 20 person Infinity List tournament. So and shout out to everybody who showed up and making that tournament what it is and getting that good practice in, because I know most of the community is traveling out to Indianapolis in less than a month. Absolutely crazy. So yeah, let's move on to the outro. That's going to do it. That's going to wrap up week 2 of the Wilds Unknown meta here in St. Louis, Missouri. Shout out to everybody who shared their decks with me, allowing me to celebrate you and this great community that we have here. Thank you to everybody who tuned in. Hope you've liked what you saw. Feel free, take some of these decks, leave your comments below on what you think about them or what you would do to change them, how you would tinker with them. Take them to your locals and see how they feel. I kid you not, the Dwarves deck is so fun to play. Try it out and make up your own decks and your own tinkering and have fun with it, because that's what this is all about. If you are coming to DLC Indianapolis in just a few weeks, please come up and say hi to any of us. We would be more than happy to see you or see you again if we've already seen you at another event. Happy to bring everybody together and have fun with this little thing that we've created here in one of the biggest events of the year. So really excited about that. Our 100th episode is coming up in just a few weeks, right before DLC Indianapolis. So stay tuned. We are going to be recording a live episode that night. I believe it is June 12th, if I recall correctly. Yeah, that's just a couple weeks away, and it's going to be absolutely insane that we've been here for 100 straight weeks, bringing you our thoughts on Disney Lorcana for whatever they're worth. We're having so much fun doing it. So please check that out. And yeah, if you like this kind of content or any kind of content from the Rules of Villainy channel, please like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications so you can see this meta report week after week. Deck Test Tuesdays every Tuesday night with Andy and Kirsten. Vince has a bunch of shorts on here. He's been doing box opening live streams now here on YouTube, as well as the podcast proper every Friday. We hope you enjoy all of that. Until next time, happy questing.